Let's journey back to the Mesolithic period and discover what life was like for the people living in Britain during this time. The Mesolithic period was a time of great change and new beginnings as the Earth warmed up after the last glacial period. However, even though the land was becoming more welcoming, there weren't many people in Britain yet. In fact, it's likely that only a few thousand people lived there, and they were spread out quite far apart. This means that people didn't live close to each other like we do today. Instead, they moved around a lot, living in small groups and sometimes going for long periods without seeing anyone outside their own family or group. One of the most famous discoveries from the Mesolithic period is the skeleton of a man found in Gough's Cave in Cheddar Gorge. This skeleton is known as Cheddar Man, and he's very special because he is the oldest complete human skeleton ever found in Britain. Imagine finding bones that have been buried for thousands and thousands of years. It's like finding a piece of a puzzle from the distant past. Cheddar Man helps us learn about what life was like so long ago. Even though we don't have photographs or videos from the Mesolithic period, we can learn about the animals that lived during this time by looking at cave paintings. These paintings were made by people living in other parts of Europe, and they show us what kinds of animals were around as the climate warmed up. For example, we know that the giant, furry mammoths that lived during the colder times began to die out because the world was getting warmer. In their place, other animals became more common, and these were the animals that Mesolithic people hunted. So, what animals did Mesolithic people hunt? They would have hunted large animals like elk, which are like giant deer with big antlers, boar, which are wild pigs with sharp tusks, reindeer, which are like the deer we see today but with big antlers, and wild cattle, which were much bigger and stronger than the cows we know now. But they didn't just hunt big animals. They also hunted smaller animals like hedgehogs, hares, which are like rabbits, and beavers, which were often found near lakes and rivers. But Mesolithic people didn't just eat meat, they were hunter-gatherers, which means they gathered food from the wild as well as hunting it. They would have foraged for wild plants like berries, nuts, and roots. Scientists have even found pollen from some vegetable plants in ancient soil, which tells us that Mesolithic people probably ate these plants too. So, their diet was quite varied, and they knew a lot about the plants and animals around them. One of the most interesting things about Mesolithic people is how they treated their dead. The first human cemetery in Britain that we know of was found at Aveline's Hole, near Cheddar Gorge, and it's about 10,300 years old. This cemetery tells us that Mesolithic people cared about the people in their group and wanted to give them a special place to rest after they died. Sometimes people were buried with their possessions, like ornaments, tools, and even food. This might mean that they believed the person would need these things in the afterlife, or it could have been a way to show respect and love for the person who had passed away. Life in the Mesolithic period was very different from today. The people were few in number and lived in small groups, moving around to find food and shelter. They were skilled hunters and gatherers, using tools made from stone, bone, and antlers to catch the animals they needed to survive. They also had a deep connection to the land and the animals around them, and they treated their dead with care and respect. Even though they lived so long ago, we can learn a lot from the clues they left behind, like the bones of Cheddar Man, the cave paintings of animals, and the ancient cemetery at Aveline's Hole. These early humans were resourceful and resilient, and their way of life laid the foundation for the many generations that came after them.